Welcome to the Happy Ladder Meditations. I'm Jodie and this is a meditation on the diaphragm and the nervous system. So in case you are unfamiliar, the diaphragm is a muscle that attaches to the lowest portion of your ribs. And as you breathe in, the diaphragm presses down into the abdominal cavity. Imagine it like a muscle that kind of folds in on itself in the middle. When you breathe in, that expands into the abdominal cavity, and when you breathe out, it lifts back up again. Now, one thing that's really interesting about when we are taking our deep abdominal breaths is that the diaphragm, as it moves up and down, it creates a little bit of vibration and tone along the vagus nerve, or the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is called this because it comes from the word vagrant. And it means wandering, it's the wandering nerve. This nerve starts in your brain, it travels down, having a reach across your senses, your sight, sound, smell, taste. And it comes down through your throat, has a little bit of a reach across the chest, and then travels down through the diaphragm and becomes this wandering nerve that really reaches all around the digestive tract, all around the gut. And it actually finishes down with the reproductive organs. So when we breathe deeply, and when the diaphragm moves up and down, creating this vibration and tone along this nerve, this really vital nerve, it's like a direct key. It unlocks our nervous system and allows us to perhaps switch from being in that fight or flight mode that so many of us exist in, because of the busyness of our lives and the constant onslaught on our senses. And it allows us to drop into rest and digest mode, or the parasympathetic nervous system. It really is that simple. And if you've ever taken part in a yoga class where you've done some deep breathing for a sustained amount of time, or if you've ever sat and noticed your breathing and breathed with a little bit of a longer inhale and exhale, if you've ever had any sort of anxiety and you've been told to breathe more deeply, or even if you've ever been a smoker and you've noticed that when you have that cigarette, you calm down. That's not the nicotine. Nicotine is actually a stimulant. What calms you down is your breathing being it's the slow and two-step inhale and the long exhale. And it's that calms your nervous system. The nicotine actually is a stimulant. So I'm going to take us through a meditation where we're going to focus on the breathing being a little bit longer on the exhale and moving the breath into the abdomen so that we get this vibration along the vagus nerve. Okay. So before we go into that, if you come and find yourself a comfortable seat, now I'm sitting up on a bolster, you might be sitting on your bed, you might be sitting on a chair, you might be sitting on the floor. However you're sitting, I would suggest that you have your hips higher than your knees. So by having your hips higher than your knees, it just makes it a lot more comfortable, but also it allows for a lot more movement of the belly breathing. And you don't want to be tight like this and you can't breathe properly. So if your cross-legged looks a bit like this and it's really limiting your movement here, you're going to limit your breath. So sit up tall onto something, as tall as you can. Try to get onto the front edge of your sitting bones. And it doesn't matter whether you have your hands palm up or palms down when we come to meditate. You might even have them resting in your lap. Whatever feels good for you. You can relax your shoulders and let your elbows just hang beneath your shoulders. But before we go into our seated meditation, I want us to take a little bit of a stretch for the vagus nerve. So there's going to be a bell in a moment, which is just for me to say that we're coming into our 10 minutes, and it will be timed with us starting this, and then we'll have about 8 minutes of silence listening to your own breathing. But I'm going to talk you through the first couple of minutes into this meditation. So first of all, let the eyes close, just sit for a moment and notice how you feel. Do you feel a bit like you've got jittery, you want to move around? Do you feel like you're breathing deeply already? Do you feel comfortable in this seat? Is your mind very busy, jerking off into different directions? How's your energy level? How's your heart rate? So notice what your baseline is. And then just open your eyes enough to see the screen, and you're going to interlace your fingers in front of your diaphragm. And I'm pulling out here, so if you have any big rings on, you might want to take them off because they might ping off. You're really actively pulling out. And as you breathe in, start to bring your hands up. Still pulling out, breathing in. When your hands go past your eyes, turn the palms up. Keep pulling out, keep pushing up. So I'm really active in my arms. And then take a little bit of a stretch back, still breathing in or holding your breath in, whatever works for you. Take your head back if you can, so your throat extends. And then exhale through the mouth. And we're going to stick out the tongue to exhale. Inhale, sitting tall, still pulling out, still pushing up. Turn to your right, so I'm not going to mirror you, turn to your right. Holding the breath in, twisting, twisting, twisting. And then exhale, sticking the tongue out. Inhale, come to center. Pulling the hands out, pushing up. Twisting to your left. And exhale with a lion's breath, stick the tongue out. Back to center, pulling out, pushing up. Taking another sip of breath, draw the hands back. And then exhale. And bring the hands down, back into your lap. Let your eyes rest closed again and notice, has your baseline changed? Do you feel more settled? Do you feel more focused? More present? So now, just breathing deeply in and out through the nose, keeping the eyes rested closed. And allow the breath to come down into the diaphragm. Imagine that every time you breathe in, you're breathing into your floating ribs. So the ribs that come around the side of the body, the lowest ribs, imagine you're breathing into there. Feel the breath move into the lower band of the lungs. And if it helps, perhaps you add a little count to the breath. Inhaling for a count of 4 or 5, and exhaling for the same amount, or maybe a little bit longer, maybe a count or two longer. And if thoughts come, which likely they will, your mind is designed to think, just try not to follow the thread of thought. Instead, invite your awareness back to the breath, the inhale and the exhale. The inhale and the exhale deep into the diaphragm. And the count of the breath. Keeping the eyes closed, let's just bring the hands once again to interlace in front of the diaphragm, in front of your solar plexus, softening the shoulders down, start to pull out. Keep the eyes closed this time. We'll just do the same as we did at the beginning. Inhale, taking the arms up, pulling the hands out, turning the palms up. You're pulling out with the hands and pushing up. And then taking the arms a little bit back, a bit of a back bend, taking the head back. Exhale through the mouth, stick out the tongue. Inhale, sitting up tall, pulling out with the hands, pushing up, turn to your right. Exhale through the mouth with a lion's breath. Inhale, come back through center. Sitting up tall, turning to the left. Keep breathing in, hold the breath in. Sip in a little bit more breath if you can. Exhale through the mouth. Come back to center, pulling out, pushing up. Lean it back. And this time, exhale. And you can open up the eyes as you bring the hands back down into your lap. So thank you for practicing this meditation. Have a lovely day.